Welcome to another episode of Ruff Talk VR, a weekly podcast with in-depth game reviews, exclusive developer interviews, and the latest MetaQuest and virtual reality news. We join our hosts, the father-son team of D. Scruffles and Stratus today, as they spend another episode breaking down and discussing the world of virtual reality.
Hey, welcome to this episode of Ruff Talk VR. Today we're joined with Clarisse Blondy. She's the producer of Home Sports, the latest game from Resolution Games. And we actually had the treat of playing this a little bit at Connect.
Yep.
And it was instantly, I think we played at Connect hockey and I want to say badminton. So we didn't go through all the sports then, but even months ago, we were like, okay, they're on to something here.
I know in Connect we had a blast playing it.
Yeah, it was.
Wanted to keep playing it.
Well, I mean, come on, we were both in the same room, so it was a lot of fun. Now we've gotten to play all the sports, and it's a blast. So I'm excited for this one. Before I fanboy out too much about Home Sports and such, Clarisse, do you mind to introduce yourself a little bit for the listeners and tell them who you are and what you do for Home Sports?
Yeah, of course. So hi, I'm Clarisse. I am the producer on Home Sports. So I've been overseeing the project management parts for almost as soon as it started, so for over 2 years now.
Wow. So, I mean, was this your idea on it, or did you just come on the project after it was already, conceived?
No, I came just after it was pitched and the base was laid out. The crazy ideas always come from Mathieu, and I think you had a podcast with him earlier this year. So yeah, he is the one who came up with the idea, and I joined and, joined the team to cover and everything, making sure it fit in our timeline, making sure we were creating 5 games at once, which is a challenge on its own. Yeah.
That's sounds about as Resolution Games as it could be, 5 games at once.
Well, why do one when you can drop 5, right?
Yeah. I mean, we've seen some great ones come out on the Vision Pro this year as well, too. And then, boom, right at the end of the year, Home Sports as well. I mean, that's a good year for Resolution Games. And was this your first project with them as well, too, or were you already a part of the team?
No, I actually joined maybe not for Home Sports, but at the right time at Home Sport was being started. So that was the first project I was assigned on, and I kept going, and here I am.
So what made Resolution Games say, let's do a sports game? It seemed, not that I have any complaint of studios when they go completely to the other end of the spectrum, but I'm curious, like, what was obviously it was pitched, but what was the thought process behind, we need to do a sports game? Was it for the co-op, playing with your friends, or was it just something that like somebody really wanted?
Yeah. So for that, I think it's not the sports part that came first. It really was more the playing with mixed reality, playing with, as soon as we got the Quest Pro and seeing the color pass-through, it was like, wow, there's actually so much you can do now with a proper pass-through. And at Resolution, one of the two key things we like to do is to have the social aspect of connecting real people together, which we do really think that VR and especially MR have the opportunity to do in a much different way than like flat screen games. And also we love to have people moving around, getting off their seats and do things. And when we saw how MR was a lot more comfortable for new players, especially because you don't fear hitting the walls, you're not as disoriented, we really, really thought that it was a great opportunity to reach a lot of people, and maybe people were not super used to having a headset on. And to reach those people, you kind of need to have something that is quite intuitive to do. And something both intuitive and social. I mean, sport is the perfect mix of both of those. And of course, since we had done Racket Club before, there was also a lot of learnings that we can bring from making this project, from how players reacted. So it was like social, intuitive, and we have kind of already some knowledge, so that was the perfect point to start with. And also, doing a lot of different activities together is something I think we all enjoy with our friends and our holidays. And we love to go bowling most of the time or things like that. Yeah.
Well, I was happy to see badminton. That's one of those games I used to play it all the time as a kid, and then as an adult, I'm like, I don't remember the last time I really played badminton in like a backyard, but it's an underrated game. So I was happy to see that you added the plus hockey.
Yes.
That was a darn good one to put in there because, to my knowledge, not really. I think there was an app game back in the day that did some hockey type things, but
there's other bowling games. There's other mini golf games. There's not really a bunch of hockey games. So that was definitely a strong one.
That was a good treat.
And how do you decide, which sports you're going to go with for a game like this? Because I imagine myself, I would be going crazy thinking like, well, let's do this sport. Let's do this sport. Let's do this sport. But at a certain point, you can only do, a certain amount of sports in one game. So how did you decide which ones that you were actually going to go with?
Because definitely, I fully agree with you. We went crazy at the beginning. We even went crazy through production, being like, what else could we do? But we had to limit ourselves because you can, it's over like quality over quantity. You had to find the right balance in between. So something we knew we really wanted was racket sports, some of them, of course, because we have the knowledge from Racket Club, as I said. But having just racket sports would be maybe a bit redundant at some points. So we wanted things that everybody knew about. As you said, we played badminton in our backyard. I remember during family vacations, we would just set up that on the side and play. Bowling is super social. Hockey was more inspired by, at least in Sweden, it's quite popular for kids to have this like smaller hockey rink and you can just play on a small scale, which ties in perfectly with the second aspect. So not only we needed to have sport that were known, we also needed sport that would work on a smaller scale. Because even if you play in MR and there is a lot of things you can do and tricks, if nobody really has a proper badminton court at home, or they are very lucky, I guess. I know I don't. And so we needed to make sure that we always found sports that would fit on the smaller scale and also sports that would fit with a limited amount of player. I'm sure football would be very fun, but you're also so limited by the size and you don't have to have 10 people with you, for example. So it was always a balance of finding what could work in MR, what could work on the small scale, and what could work with you being doing real locomotion, natural locomotion in a small space. Almost covered everything. I'm not sure. Yes, so that's boiled down some spots that at some point our game designers went crazy and were like, we should add ski shooting. And it's like, okay, there are some interesting thoughts, but how do you make locomotion feels natural? How do you avoid people having to click some other buttons or have teleportation and things like that as much as possible, even though we had it a little bit in later. And so we narrowed it down to pickleball, badminton, hockey, bowling, and mini-golf. And I think that's a very nice variety. So you can have more dynamic stuff where you run a bit everywhere and more chill and calm things with mini golf, for example, or you can play maybe with people that are really taking a bit of a rest after running like that.
No, I like the variety of it. It makes sense.
Makes me wonder though if you're going to add more down the road. Not that it needs it, so I'm not saying like, oh, you need to add more. Do you foresee? I'm trying to word it carefully so I don't put you on the spot. Do you foresee the possibility of other sports being added down the road?
So on that one, the game got released on Wednesday, so it's super fresh. As of right now, we're very much focusing on gathering the player feedback, especially on the sports we already have, to make sure that we are addressing anything you might have missed. For the future, we'll see. We'll see how the community reacts, what makes sense to add or what makes sense to do with the project on its own, not just sports. But we'll keep an eye out. That's as much as I can say.
It's a good answer. I like the word community that was put in there. So I have a feeling if the community was like, we need this, they'd probably get that.
And well, with it only coming out this past Wednesday, how's the initial player feedback been as well?
So far, we've seen so many people having so much fun, especially on Discord. I've been in the Discord looking at how players are reacting. It seems that we really, really got a message across of like you can play with a lot of different people, with your kids, with your older family members, with your friends. And we've seen already some videos of people playing in the backyard, people playing in their living room, and it has been like just so much fun to see the game in the setting, like in the living space of other people. It has been a lot of fun. But definitely, we have already people asking for more sports. We also have some interesting opinions. Sorry, my cat is eating my plants, definitely.
Yeah, I watched that go down. I didn't want to point it out. I'm like, maybe that's one of those plants that the cat can eat. I don't know.
Yeah, you can eat it. That's special guest. But no, people so far are very eager to play and having a lot of fun. And that's what matters to us. Especially, as we said, the connecting parts. They're already starting setting up rooms with each other to get to, play together at specific time and get to know each other, which I find super cool.
I love that it's mixed reality as well too, because I remember with Racket Club, that is the only way I would play Racket Club is with the mixed reality mode.
Well, you can play it without mixed reality, but you and I both know we're going to hit our floor.
I get way too into it. I'm way too competitive, so it's like I can already imagine with the hockey, not mixed reality, I'd be running into not maybe into the wall, but I'd be pushing my boundary to say the least.
I would probably slap shot it on a wall.
So the mixed reality aspect is a huge part I love, and something else I love is for people like me and him that play together. It's an awesome multiplayer game, but there's also that single player career mode. So do you want to tell our listeners a little bit like what goes down in that career mode, the way it works?
Just before I fully agree with you with Emma, before we had the proper Emma system in home sports, we played a lot of Racket Club to see how we were going to handle Pickleball and Badminton. And definitely it's really nice to be able to run freely, especially we added the boundaryless mode. So that's where you don't even have your guardian and your boundaries showing up, which has been very nice. If you haven't, if you can try that out. I think it's a thing I keep it on actually. But yeah, it's quite nice to be able to run around, especially when the first few times I had my parents try it, which, they're a bit older, they're not necessarily used to VR. They could move freely, and that's when you really, really see the potential with people who are not that well versed into headsets. For your other question, it was about the carrier mode. Yes, the carrier mode. We had a lot of fun. Because each sport has a rival, who are the how do you say? I'm using the English words. My French is coming first. They are the usual suspect. No, but they come regularly to the home sports center, and they play a lot. And we knew we wanted to have them as your rival when you play single player matches. And we wanted them to be colorful and approachable and have strong personalities. And having the career where they can have dialogue and they can have the whole story and drama, that was so much fun for us internally to really give life to this environment, this character, this universe. And the career itself, it's such a good tutorial. It introduces the player gradually to what is Pickleball, how does it work in home sports, and then what is hockey, what are the different things you can do that you might not be able to do in real hockey. So it has been quite a fun thing to onboard the players who wants to know a little more, but also leave the opportunity for those who just want to jump straight with their friends to skip all of that and build at a later time if they want to. And it has been also a very nice way of using our drills, because each sport has 2 drills, which is a mix between a practice session to really fine-tune your skills and more like a mini game. And through the career, we could play a bit more with those, be a bit more arcadey, have a bit more freedom on the game design, on the gameplay, making it a bit more fast-paced, slow-paced. That has been a very nice addition, I think, for a player who might not have friends always accessible.
I agree. And I like that it takes you through all the sports as well, too. So if somebody goes, oh, I'm only ever going to play bowling, the career mode's going to force them to do, the pickleball, the badminton.
Nothing says good time like a career mode.
Yeah, I love that stuff.
That's the easiest way to get me to keep playing something is have unlockables or a career mode.
Mm-hmm. It's the completionist element of it. It's like I got to beat the whole thing. And, we were talking about different sports before. Were there any sports, you mentioned like the ski shooting and stuff. Were there any sports that came close, but, maybe didn't make the full cut?
Yes. For the longest time, we had shuffleboard and air hockey being part of the list of sports you really wanted to add in the game, I mean. And we had this idea of like setting up like a virtual table, or had you put your place your game on the proper table and then play around. But we soon realized that it was limiting the player in how they could move, where they could place things, or this physical table never felt really great to us. So we decided to switch and instead move for bowling, because let's admit it, bowling is you have to have bowling. That's clear. We also hesitated between bowling and baseball, actually, but we thought that the social aspect of bowling is so much more known to people. I mean, when you go to a bowling alley with your friends, you know what to expect, and when you enter home sport to play bowling, you know what to expect as well. Well, baseball might sound a bit more hardcore in a way.
It's funny you say that. You mentioned baseball because I was trying to brainstorm to myself, like, what other sports would I add in?
I like the shuffleboard idea.
Yeah,
only because I've not really schooled in, so it's a good way to learn.
Well, that's what's cool about pickleball is I didn't really know much about how to play pickleball, and then by the end of a bunch of these, you actually know how. But baseball was one of the only sports I could think of that I was like, what they didn't do, and that would be like a pitching and a batting mode. But I agree. I think I think bowling is much more palatable worldwide. Like baseball is very popular in select countries, whereas everybody loves bowling. I think bowling's pretty worldwide, so I understand that decision with it as well too. And we did kind of skip over yourself as well too. We went right into the home sports. Was this your first time working in the VR industry, or do you come from, an extended background in the gaming industry?
So it was my first title in VR MR, but I have a bit of background in the gaming industry. I actually did my master's degree in video game, like game design and production. And then I had a few experiences in more like PC console games. Then I switched to mobile, and then I came to VR.
And
maybe.
was it something that like professionally you were drawn to VR, or was it kind of just the next natural stage of your work?
So VR, well, I like video games because of how it can emotionally speak to players and emotionally connect players. So definitely VR was very, very interesting on that side. I was not particularly it was not, oh, my next step needs to be VR. I'm always curious about trying new things and new tech and things like that. But really when I entered the process at Resolution. It was more like the company culture that really drove me in. And I was like, wow, it's good people making good games for other good people. And that's really, really attracted me. Because I think as a producer, I maybe have different view on games. Because my role is just to make sure the project reaches the finish line. So it doesn't matter as much what type of game we are making, but really working with a team of dedicated people that are very passionate and they really want to make the best for their players. I think that's my goal, and I reached it here. So that's
Well, having visited the office of Resolution Games, or the old office at that time, I could totally see the company culture selling you. I think I could go there and be like, yeah, I'm good to stay here. It was a very, very chill, very nice office. So that's cool to hear. That's what really attracted you to Resolution Games as well, too. And then, it's kind of maybe hard to pick because they're all your creations. They're all your babies in the end, right? It's like picking your favorite child. But do you have a favorite in-game sport as well of the collection that's in the game?
It depends. It really, really depends what I'm looking for. If I'm looking for, like, if I'm about to play with my family, I'd rather go mini golf because I know everybody in the family can play and understand and we can laugh at each other. Personally, I like to run around and I'm a bit competitive. So I have played a bit too much of badminton against our housebots. And I have had very intense matches at the office where, we're supposed to test the game for like a bug or a review and just end up spending 30 minutes doing a 5 sets match. So I really, really like badminton.
Yeah.
I'm curious if there's already in-house tournaments going on at the studio. And if so, who's placing first?
So we had at the beginning, due to how our rivals were trained and scripted, we needed to have a lot of tournaments, though it changed a bit, but we can touch on that later. So we had internal tournaments and I never won and I'm very sad. But now that the game is released, we're going to have a company-wide tournament with like team of 5 and we'll have a champion for each sport and we're going to compete. So we'll see. I have hope. I already know some people in my team that can be very good. So as a producer, I can get the first, I pick you.
Well, hopefully you got it for badminton. I wonder though, is there a consistent best in the office? Like you were saying, is there one person that's like always taking first place?
And there used to be one person that was really, really good. He moved away to new adventures. So now the title is back, back in the open. Let's see who's the next champion.
Moved away or forced out. You're doing too good. Go find. You need to go work over there. Taking too much.
So we had a little trophy for home sports internal tournaments, and he gave it to me. So now I feel like I'm really champion.
And you said that you all needed to play a bunch to help with the rivals in it and stuff. So does that mean that the rivals are like they learn from player data? I remember when we talked for Racket Club, there was a lot of machine learning going on in that game. Is that like a similar thing of why you needed to play a bunch?
So we started with a similar thing. So part of our AI is scripted because those movements, like for example, mini golf and bowling, it makes more sense to have them scripted. But for the other 3 sports, we had some machine learning, and it started with imitation. So the bot learning from what the players are doing, a bit like Racket was doing. But we actually decided to move to a new, it's not that new before, supposedly, version of this, this is called imitation learning. And we went for reinforcement learning. I don't know if you ever seen those videos where they try to have like a character walking and the first cycle, it fails miserably and then it gets better as it's trying. And so that's what we went with for home sports. The fact is that imitation works really well for more competitive game, especially when there is one sport/type of actions. For us, with having to do 3 different sports, the volume it would take of data together and the time it would take from the team and all of that, it made a little more sense for us to have our bots compete against each other to get really, really good and then to knock them down a bit.
So you had to bring him down. Was there a point where the bots were just like Terminators in each sport, just like beating everyone?
I had it's not even that it was that it's not that it was beating us by being necessarily the smartest or it's just so consistent. Like it would get you, like you would get tired and you would just give up. It would just throw back everything so perfectly that we had to tune them down because, even if you have a hard bot, you kind of want to be able to win in a good way. So I've seen some comments from players that they want harder bots. I know we have top bots internally, and I'm not sure they want that, but we're investigating internally, at least.
Yep.
So careful what you wish for, because when you get it, you're not going to like it as much as I get it. Though people they want to feel that utmost challenge, and then I guess the question though is if you don't ever win, but if it is winnable, then I suppose it would be okay.
Well, now's the post-release balance where you have all this player feedback and you go, what's the right level of, make it hard for them, but not too hard that they don't ever win.
Quit.
Yeah, it's a, I'm sure that there's going to be a lot of balancing in the next couple months and stuff as player feedback comes out.
I just love that they learn.
Yeah.
And get better and better.
I don't know many other games, at least that are publicly talking about using machine learning in VR games like that.
Racket Club was the first, I think.
That was
I heard of.
the first and only example that comes to mind. Now home sports as well, too. I mean, it makes sense for AI, like especially for a sports game. Like players are going to figure out what works the best. Like the AI has to be able to adapt to that, right, over time. So it's a really cool concept. Yeah,
I think it's especially since you're doing it with your own body and your own. If you do it with a flat screen sport game, we can limit the type of hits the character can actually do. But there are so many combinations when it's your actual body doing the movement that if you want the bot to really be able to cover as much as possible and different sizes, because we can talk about that, the game can be played at different scales. So the bot needs to know how to react on those different scales. Imitation learning and machine learning make so much more sense for us.
I agree.
I'm curious the programming of an AI like that. Is it just code that's put in there and then it just starts? I mean, I can't even begin to understand how do you write a code for something to learn and get better? To me, it kind of blows my mind a little.
So I am not well versed in machine learning, but I can explain to you what I understood from HubSpot, at least. So basically, it's each bot has an algorithm, a model inside of them, and this model is based on a lot of tests and training that is done outside of the game. And whenever the bot is doing something good, it gets a reward, and whenever it's doing something bad, it gets like punishment. And through a lot of cycles like that, like running through the whole night, it will learn that, okay, it needs to wait for the ball to bounce, to hit it and hit it back in the court to get the maximum amount of rewards. And then you refine it from there.
But it actually uses a reward system for the AI. Is that what you're saying?
In the short version is, yes.
That is so crazy.
But it's so much more complicated than that. But whenever they talk to me, they were like, reward punishments. That's all you need to know.
It's just like training a dog, like you'll give the dog a reward.
Exactly.
Yeah. It's like behaviorism, just
in a
on
computer.
the machine sense. Yeah.
Yeah, that's really learning.
That's crazy.
Yeah, we live in weird times right now.
Mm-hmm. wait till somebody applies this for a boxing game and stuff, and then you have somebody that you can't even punch because their head movement is so.
We've seen some games where I can't remember the game, but the AI they had to turn it down.
I believe that was Swordsman.
Swordsman. Yeah, it was unbeatable. You would never best swordsman in the world.
And it, like she said, it reaches a point players want to win too, even if there's a hard mode. So it is a balance. Yeah. That's
I get why people are asking for give me the hardest. I mean, can you imagine if you beat it? That feeling you're going to have knowing you beat the hardest freaking AI. I mean, I don't think
the problem is it might get better.
Yeah, every time it misses.
So you're better off doing it early.
Again.
And you mentioned the game can be played at like different scales and stuff like that. I can only imagine that's a nightmare for AI and everything. So what were some of the challenges in making a game like Home Sports that's going to be mixed reality, many sports, multiplayer, got to play in everyone's different size play space? You know, I could go on, you know. So yeah, what were some of these challenges?
It does sound crazy when you phrase it like that. It was a play of it, but definitely first with different play space sizes. It's like, what's the smallest that you should do? And what's the biggest that you can actually do? What makes sense? So first was defining the right sizes. Because if you go too small, then it doesn't, like, you just do this and you're already keeping the other thing. And that's not super fun. And then it's not only you had to make a game that has very nice physics and feels very nice to play, but you need to make sure that if you're going down or up in the scale of the game, the muscle memory can be as functional as possible. So it was all about not only nailing the physics, but also nailing the algorithm to scale it up and down, like which factor, because also it's not just a straight line. Like there are some things you need to make to cap after a certain size, or there is a lot of math involved, and I'm glad I'm not part of that part. But that was definitely quite a challenge to make sure every sport was enjoyable to play. And then it meant training our AI on 5 different court sizes on top of that.
Yeah.
And it was also like, should we keep the court exactly to your play space? Should we extend it just a tiny bit because you can hit a bit longer with the gears you have? All in all, I think we have found a very nice balance between all of that. And yeah, that's quite an achievement, I would say.
Yeah, I mean, it, like you said, it's one thing to do it with one sport, but 5 sports to have all those different play spaces with and court sizes. It's a lot to take in consideration. But you guys all pulled it off, so I mean,
would you expect anything less from Resolution?
Yeah, that's the reality. Yeah. Even before you tried it at Connect, I was like, I'm gonna try this because it's Resolution Games, but I mean, I don't need to try it to know it's going to be good.
Yeah, if they got their name on it, I'm pretty sold that it'll be a good product.
I've yet to be burned by them. Yeah, that's a good point. And do you have any tips for new players struggling with any of the sports?
I would say that the career is a very great place to start. And also not underestimate the practice and the drills that we have. They can really, really help you get better. I know in real life, I am terrible at bowling. Having the assist with the guardrails is already doing a lot for me. But during development, I had to try a lot one specific drills where you had to aim at specific part of the lane to get some bonuses. And that really, really helped me to nail down like the spins and the hit, the bounces and stuff like that. I'm still bad, but I'm less bad, at least.
Have you all right, so I'll assume in real life, not in VR, you're not great at bowling, correct? No. So I'm curious, after months of doing this in game, if the next time you go bowling, you've actually carried over some stuff you've learned in VR from bowling to go, oh man, I'm not as bad as I was 6 months ago at bowling.
I have noticed that for Badminton, at least, I'm a bit more I know at least where the opponent might try to get me. Like, where are my flows? I don't move enough. I don't place myself, reposition myself enough. For bowling, I have my pride, so I need to play without the guardrails with real people. So I haven't seen improvement there. But
guardrails
with the
make a
guardrails,
big-
it works.
Yeah, they make a big difference in
Use
real
them
life
to your
and in
advantage.
VR.
Yeah. Bumper.
Yeah.
Put the
Do the
bumpers
zigzag
up.
method.
Yeah. Screw it. What happens, happens.
But honestly, first of all, I discovered spinning with home sport bowling. I didn't know, like, my skills in bowling are so bad. I didn't know you could spin the ball. It was just straight. So I'm still learning. Now I know a bit more of the theory, at least.
Yeah, being able to put a spin on a ball is always like your first test that you do in any bowling
Although
game.
balls are made for that.
Mm-hmm.
Like the house balls at bowling alleys typically don't spin, even if you put the spin on them. Where like you can get, believe it or not, you can get bowling balls that'll spin left, spin right. It's just the way they balance them so that it naturally starts to spin. Versus, the house balls that you use that, again, you can spin it. It's going to turn, but it's not going to cut into the lane like that.
Yeah, the pro end of bowling is a very
I'm
big
not a
rabbit
pro.
hole.
Pro, I am not. I love the idea that you can do something in VR. It almost doesn't matter what it is, and then have real world application to be better at whatever it is. I think it's great.
Mm-hmm. And
I
going
think
back,
but just on that, there's just by practicing, I think our players will definitely get a bit better. It's just also good to remember that we took a bit of liberties here and there because we wanted to have immediate fun for the players. So it's not the simulation. It's not a one-to-one simulation. Not like, Racket Club is not a simulation, but it's also a lot closer to reality. So we took some liberties.
Yeah, it's a fun game in the end. It might not be like a 1-to-1 game simulation is what you're saying. In the end you made a fun sports game. Well, 5 fun sports games, I should say. Not just
Which
one.
on its own, one could argue it's 5 different games right there. If you had just done one bowling, one badminton, one. Still like the idea of shuffleboard though. I have no clue how to play shuffleboard. I just know old people in Florida play it.
It's very popular in Sweden. It has a lot of bars with shuffleboards available.
That's cool. How do you play it? Since I know it's not really the most relevant, but we'll make this a little educational. Not to put you on the spot.
You throw things and you try to not hit. You try to go as far as possible on the table, but to not fall off the table. And then there is a whole crazy thing about adding some salt to make it like smoother or like slow down. So I'm not. Yeah.
Nope, I get it.
I get it. And going back to the development side of things, was there any one of these 5 sports that gave, I guess, the biggest challenge in the development side?
Hockey was definitely, as I said, we took liberties. We're a bit more arcadey on some aspects, and our hockey is not real hockey by car. It's a very condensed version that can fit on a mini rink, and that is more focused on blocking and slap shots. But for the longest time, we were like, okay, how do we make the feeling of being on ice? How do we holding the stick feel proper? Yeah, the cat is back. And then how do we make the gameplay interesting? Because if that putt dies too slow, then it feels very like, okay, my turn, your turn, my turn, your turn. And that's really killed the flow and the energy of a rally. So instead, we decided to add the longer the rally goes, the more speed it gets by a system of levels. And this is not really realistic for sure. But with thought it was a very nice way of just making sure it would not extend for too long and up the stakes. But hockey has been both in how you handle the gears, how the puck behaves, what's the flow of the rally has been the most challenging one. It seems that players really, really like it. It's a very easy one to get into, and I'm very, very happy because we had doubts sometimes about hockey, but now I'm reassured.
I think it'll be the most popular one.
I like badminton the most just because of my personal love of badminton. But I think when you and I play, hockey's been the one that we played the most.
Mm-hmm. Just because there's not, same with badminton though. There's not other badminton games in VR, and same with hockey. It's like, even though, like you said, it might be a more condensed version where it's kind of like a shootout almost. You're just kind of going back and forth, hitting it. It's so fun. Like you said, the puck gets faster the more times you hit it, and then of course it's worth more points too. Yeah. So it's like it creates this. Like if you're volleying it back and forth with each other, like it gets very adrenaline inducing. I think more than any other one of the sports.
We're both very competitive, I'd say, when we play it.
Mm-hmm.
I think.
And I like that, it took me a little bit to get used to, but the switching between the regular stick and then the goalie stick as well too.
Yeah, you were doing just the regular stick at the
for
start.
A while,
yeah.
and I was like, oh man, yeah, I can switch back, and it definitely does make a big difference.
Yeah, it's a goalie
as well
stick.
too.
It's bigger.
And then
that was another challenge because we really wanted all the sports to be playable with one hand only, just in case. I think it's a nice addition. But when we had one hockey stick for only one, you would get so much better. Like you would get such a clear advantage by playing only one hand because you could do such fast motion. And then it was like, okay, but how to be balanced? What can we do? So then when playing with one hand, you get a bit it gets balanced. But for people who are able to play with only one hand, how do we do something that is still pleasant? So finding this slap shot and guarding stick was definitely a huge finding when we found it. So I'm glad to hear it's being appreciated.
Yeah, and those physics with the puck work pretty darn good because I do a lot of the bank shots off the side of the wall to try to pop it in versus going straight on to the goal. So I give a lot of credit to the team on pulling this off. It's one thing to pull off one sports game, but go, you know what? We're going to do 5 and we're going to make it playable with a career mode,
with multiplayer,
multi-size. It's like, geez Louise. It's a lot of undertaking.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. I'll share that with the team. I'm sure they will appreciate it.
And then we had asked about, in-house tournaments earlier, who's the best in the office and such, but will we ever see something like that for more the community side of
Discord or
tournaments, leaderboards, rankings, that type of stuff?
Same as previously when we discussed about sports, to be added or things like that. We're going to see what comes out from the community's reaction and decide what makes more sense for on sports. From the beginning, it was a conscious decision to not have leaderboards because we really want this friendly and approachable image first and foremost. We do think that leaderboards might, it's not the same feeling when you want to play with your kids or when you want to play with your family to have a big leaderboard that says, oh, you're that good. And also for tournaments inside the community, our community manager suggested that we have a dev versus community tournament. And I'm very scared of this one because I know I'm not going to be winning this one. But definitely that's some things we're looking into and that could be done, not making any promises, but that could be fun to have on Discord.
Dev versus community tournament. That's a great idea.
We've played some devs. They can be some hardcore players, though.
Yeah, but once a game's been out give it 1 week, and all of a sudden, already you'll have players that are passing the dev team. People get good at games quick. There's some high level people out there. So I'm curious who walks away the victor of that one. I'm definitely interested. So
We're already seeing some racket club players coming in to give it a go, and I'm seeing videos and I'm like, wow, I have no chances at all.
So the last thing that's burning at me that I haven't gotten to yet, because we mentioned Resolution Games, they work on multiple games at once too. So while it might be a big company, sometimes it's a little bit shocking, like the quality that comes out from the individual team size. So how big was the team that worked on Home Sports?
So the team fluctuated, as you can imagine, in production. It's not one stable thing throughout 2 years. The team fluctuated, but I would say on average, we were around 20, 30 people. If you take the end and the beginning where we were less, and the really intensive production part of it where we were a bit more, I'd say around 20, 30 is a good number.
That's pretty impressive to come out.
Still 2 years is pretty good.
So while we have her here, anything else you want to ask, Clarisse?
No, we talk like it's been out for years and we're just refreshing about the game when it literally just came out. And it's like, I feel even bad asking earlier, like, any more games coming
it's
to it?
It's the natural question, though.
But I already know from a consumer standpoint, that's the first thing that goes to your head. Will there be a roadmap for this game and what's the future for it? When I should just leave it as what you've brought to the table is good. I haven't had any functionality issues when we play together. We're both very competitive, so it's not like one side's going soft and the other side's going hard. I mean, we play to win no matter what we play. So I'm just not shocked, but I'm shocked that Resolution would just come out of the gate with it. Hey, we're doing a sports game again.
Well, they had Racket Club. It was great. So, but this feels like all the lessons from Racket Club. It almost feels like Racket Club 2.0.
It'll always be Demio to
me. So this was fun. Before we let you go, Clarisse, is there anything you want to say about the game? Maybe where listeners can tune in to stay up to date with Home Sports?
So you can find the game on the Meta store for Quest 3 and Quest 3S. We also have a Reddit, Instagram, YouTube. No, do we have YouTube? I'm not sure. You can find the Resolution YouTube. The community manager reading this, listening to this. And of course, you can find us on Discord. I think that's where we are the most active. At least that's the easiest for us to track down, issues that player might have, feedback, just seeing all the good fun. But yeah, I'm super happy to see that, those 2 years of hard work are out, that people are enjoying it the way we hoped for them to enjoy it. The team had done a fantastic job. They were a pleasure to work with, and I can deserve credit for that. And yeah, thanks for all the kind words about Resolution and Home Sports. I thank you so much.
Yeah. Well, Resolution's a studio that in our brains is one of the higher ends. We'll call it the AAA of VR. There's only a handful. It doesn't take a AAA flat screen to be AAA in VR, in my opinion. So no, Resolution just continues to.
We've yet to be disappointed from a release.
No.
If anything, we're sitting here going, give us more of the releases, because there's been a couple that came out on the Vision Pro, like Gears and Goo.
Yeah, I don't want to talk about their
Game Room. So it's like everything from Resolution
Game
Games
Room should be on Quest.
Yeah, we won't throw this at Clarisse. We gotta, as non-Vision Pro users, we got a bone to pick with that. We want it. Everything they do is good. And I mean, look, let's be real. At the time of recording, it's Sunday. The game came out less than a week ago. It's got a 4.7 on the MetaQuest store. It's already at over 100 reviews,
which is pretty damn good.
So, I mean, I think that the people have spoken. That says enough. Yeah. It's a great game if you're looking for a collection of sports games, especially in time for the holidays. Show your friends, your family what VR is about. This is a great one to have, and boom, you get 5 sports with it right off the top. So that's awesome. So thank you so much for joining us today. I know your cat was wanting your attention pretty bad, so I appreciate that.
I'm loving watching a cat in the background.
Yeah, it's people's pets are usually my favorite part of an interview. If you can see a dog or a cat in the background, makes my day.
That little guy's just having a blast.
So
yes.
Thank you for taking the time to talk with us. To the listeners, if you haven't checked out the latest game from Resolution games yet. Home sports, go check it out on the Meta Quest. And we will check you out next week. Ciao, ciao.